Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather at 5 days and 5 minutes on this Saturday morning, the 3rd of August. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast will be back tomorrow night, Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, got a bit of a busier weather day coming up, and we've got quite a bit going on. So let's get to it here, where we still have heat advisories up for southeastern, southern New England, down through parts of central New Jersey, some flood watches up for areas in eastern Maryland. Looks like the Washington, D.C., Baltimore to Wilmington, Delaware corridor there. And then again for some counties in south central Virginia and central North Carolina. We have tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches up for the west coast of Florida. Tropical depression 4 is moving over Western Cuba, and it's going to emerge into the southeast Gulf of Mexico during the day today, at which point it will start to strengthen, and we'll come back to that in a bit. We have heat advisories up across the central and western Gulf states, heat advisories up in the northwest with some excessive heat warnings and red flag warnings up as well. And here's the satellite loop this morning. In the northeast, we've got some cloud cover, but sunshine is breaking out, and this is going to be another day of hot, very humid weather. Dew points are going to be up in the middle 70s in many areas in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. So, with temperatures reaching 90 degrees and dew points sitting at around 75, you pretty much are going to be living in a steam bath. Meanwhile, down in the Florida Straits and over Cuba, you can see the circular shape of clouds. On that is Tropical Depression 4. So we've gone from a potential tropical cyclone to now where it is a tropical cyclone. Tropical Depression 4, it is moving to the west northwest. I have a close-up satellite view of this, and you'll notice there are clusters of convection, but it's not particularly concentrated yet. However, the signature on the satellite is impressive, and when it moves into the southeast Gulf, once it clears the west coast of Cuba, this system should probably strengthen relatively quickly. So the Hurricane Center has gone ahead and put up tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches up for the west coast of Florida. We'll take a look at what the guidance does with this, and this is the intensity guidance in the over the next couple of days. And wrong one. They made it a tropical depression, so I have to switch this. So just give me a moment here, everybody. I appreciate your patience, and we'll bring up the current storms on tropical tidbits. Here's Tropical Depression 4. So here's the this is the hurricane track model guidance. And you see as it emerges out into the Gulf of Mexico, one of the things that's interesting to me is the fact that the system still moving west northwest means that it's going to probably come out a little bit further west in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Gulf of Mexico, a bit further away from the Florida west coast. And this is very, very important because this could open up the opportunity for additional strengthening and increase the possibility that we could have a hurricane going into the Florida coast around the Florida Big Bend sometime late Sunday or Sunday night into early Monday morning, depending on how fast it moves. And also, a lot of the model guidance, the hurricane model guidance, is coming to around to what the global model guidance has been showing, which is the system is going to cross Florida and then come out off the southeast coast, off the Georgia coast, South Carolina coast. And this is where it becomes really uncertain going forward because a lot of the models wind up stalling this there. There's not a whole lot of push from the upper atmosphere to move it along. So this opens up a lot of possibilities for the Carolinas or the Georgia coast for Northeast Florida, in addition to the west coast of Florida. So we're going to advise that you folks pay close attention. And in the longer range, whether it eventually rides up to the northeast and goes further up the coast in some fashion is also something also highly uncertain. And here's the intensity guidance. Now, most of the intensity guidance, at least for now, uh, make it a tropical storm, and only a couple of models strengthen it to a Category 1 hurricane. I'm being very cautious here with this because of the fact that with our experience with Hurricane Beryl, the models did not do well, and upper air conditions in the eastern Gulf of Mexico are very favorable for strengthening when there's very little wind shear. Winds are very light all the way up into the higher levels of the atmosphere, and this is a conducive environment for strengthening. So we'll look at models in a second. I want to just also touch upon the fact that we have in the east today, we have severe weather risks from Georgia northeastward up through the lower and middle Hudson Valley into southwestern New England. So this includes New York City, Long Island, the Catskills, northeastern Pennsylvania, much of northern New Jersey. As you get to central and southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania southward, down into central North Carolina, we have a slight risk for severe weather. We also have a marginal risk in southwest Florida. We're seeing a slight risk up in the northern plains, Minnesota to South Dakota, and a small area of marginal risk in northwest Texas and western Oklahoma. Excuse me. And there's 2% tornado risk being indicated for South Florida. As far as rainfall is concerned over the next 7 days, it is going to be substantial. We're looking at 7 to as much as 10 inches of rain for the west coast of Florida, and then up the southeast coast, and actually for areas inland of the coast, a very large area of 5 to 10 inches, and even an area of 10 inches or more right along the coast of South Carolina. The heavy rainfalls of up to several inches or more, and we're talking 3, 4, 5 inches, possible even as far north as southern and southwestern New England. A lot of this is going to depend on the track in the longer range, and I don't think we're at a place right now where we can figure this out. So I'm just going to we'll check out the latest GFS model and we'll take a look at what it does. You see, it starts to organize and closes off a tropical system by early Sunday morning, east of, say, Fort Myers, and then moves it up northwestward, parallel to the Florida coast. The GFS is a little further to the east than the hurricane tracking models. And we'll see how this goes. But it brings in a strong tropical storm or even a minimal hurricane into the coast along the Florida Big Bend, and then crossing Florida. And you see what happens here as it gets to the southeast coast. It just kind of lingers there and uh, pushes it further offshore where it actually strengthens. And this is over the course of a couple of days. We're looking at, this is just timing it from a standpoint of days. This is Sunday night into Monday morning, and we are Wednesday and into Thursday, and it's still off the southeast coast. So you can see how difficult it is to figure out how this is going to play out because we have to take into account the possibility that we could see this stalling there. In the meantime, as we run up through the Northeast, we have a weather front approaching that's going to stall out later today and tonight. Showers and thunderstorms and severe weather from Maine down to Georgia. And then again tomorrow, there will be showers and storms that will develop as that frontal boundary remains stalled out. And then there's another front that pushes southward on Monday night and Tuesday with some showers and storms up in the Northeast. And that front is going to stall out in an east-west fashion through the middle of next week to the south across the mid-Atlantic states. And then, of course, south of that, you have what will probably be the tropical storm or Hurricane Debbie as it rotates around and figures out what it's going to do. And I'm just going to leave you with this. Well, just to show you on the upper air why this is not a simple matter of something that's going to just recurve and move on out to the northeast and go on its merry way. If we look at the upper air for this weekend, there's a shortwave trough, and it runs from western New York down into northern Georgia. This is the system that is triggering off the showers and thunderstorms and potential severe weather risk in the eastern U.S. today. It creates a weakness in the southeast in the upper atmosphere. You have the Bermuda high to the east. You have a big high, upper high that is sitting in the southwest. So there's sort of this hole in the middle that this tropical system will exploit and make the turn. The problem is that as we move into next week, westerly winds in the upper atmosphere that are blowing from the western Great Lakes, and I'll just illustrate it here. You have upper air winds like this. You have the Bermuda high that's out here. You have the southwest high here, and here's what would be tropical storm or Hurricane Debbie, and it's kind of in a no man's land with regards to where this is going to go. You'll see as I take off the upper air here and move it forward, it moves off the southeast coast, but it's too far south to get caught by those westerly winds in the upper atmosphere that run from the Great Lakes to New England. So, and over time, the ridge in the Atlantic rebuilds, and this is where we get to late in the week. We have a deep trough that's swinging out of Canada across the Great Lakes, and that ultimately will pick up the tropical system. But where and how it does it is the big mystery, as far as I can see at this point. So it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on in the upper atmosphere with respect to this developing tropical cyclone. So we'll be updating today and tomorrow, of course, with website posts and uh, my subscription website, which is patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Cioffi. And you can watch videos like this with no commercials there as well. So just bear that in mind. And of course, we'll have the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. So have a great weekend.